Ignoring this advice could make you a target for manipulation your whole life. The most dangerous tactic? Never react, never explain, just ignore, and those who master hold ultimate power. Think about your life. How many times have you reacted and immediately regretted it? How many times did your words give someone else control over your emotions, decisions, or energy? Be honest, it happens more than you realize. By the end of this video, you'll discover 10 dark psychology tricks, straight from Machiavelli's playbook, that can transform how people respond to you. You'll learn how to control perception, neutralize toxic people, and gain influence without ever arguing, defending yourself, or explaining your actions. These strategies will make people overextend themselves, doubt themselves, and obey you silently. This is knowledge history's most powerful leaders, negotiators, and influencers have used to stay untouchable, and now you will too. The first trick, the foundation of Machiavellian strategy, is this: never react. Every reaction you give, no matter how small, feeds your opponent. Every word, every micro-expression, every subtle emotion, it strengthens a control over you. And when you explain yourself, you justify their attack. But by ignoring, you reclaim that power and become untouchable. It sounds deceptively simple, almost too easy, but the effect is devastating. People will reveal their true intentions, make mistakes, and overstep, all because you didn't give them the reaction they craved. Think about the last time someone provoked you. Did you snap? Did you defend yourself? Type expose in the comments if you know exactly what I mean. In 1513, Niccolò Machiavelli wrote The Prince. A nobleman faced constant insults and sabotage. Every advisor demanded retaliation, but he stayed silent. Day after day, provocation after provocation, he said nothing. By the end of the year, his rivals had turned against each other, exposed their weaknesses, and his power was untouchable. Silence wasn't passivity, it was precision, invisible power. A CEO faces public criticism during a critical meeting. Everyone expects a reaction, anger, defense, a rebuttal. But one executive sits quietly. By the end, the critics have discredited themselves, while she emerges stronger, respected, untouchable. Silence doesn't just protect you, it punishes them in ways they don't even see coming. Every argument you've lost, every situation where you felt trapped, could have been neutralized with silence. Imagine sitting in a tense situation and not reacting. You watch the provocateur unravel themselves. That's invisible power. If you're still here, comment silent power. You're already taking the first step to mastering influence. Ignoring is harder than it seems. It requires discipline, awareness, and patience, but the payoff is unmatched. Every reaction you suppress, every explanation you avoid, allows people to self-destruct around you. Their frustration grows, their judgment clouds, and they give away opportunities without you saying a word. A high-stakes example: a competitor insults you during a negotiation. Most will defend themselves, potentially ruining the deal. One executive doesn't. She stays calm, silent. By the end, the competitor has overstepped, discredited themselves, and she secures a deal. She didn't fight. She didn't argue. She didn't react. Silence became her power. By chapter 2, you'll see why explaining yourself is a trap and why silence alone can dominate every interaction. Think of someone who constantly tries to provoke or manipulate you. Now imagine responding with zero emotion. No words, no gestures, no expressions. Imagine the internal chaos it would create for them. That's the invisible power we're talking about. The more intense the attack, the stronger your advantage. Every insult, every criticism, every attempt to provoke, it only strengthens your position if you refuse to react. By chapter 3, you'll see why even defending yourself, even explaining your actions, only gives them more ammunition. Ignoring silently can break people faster than confrontation ever could. If this resonates, hit subscribe and comment silent power. If you're ready to reclaim your energy and influence, mastering silence is a first step toward making people reveal their true intentions without you saying a word. The first trick, never reacting, is deceptively simple. But the next one tests your self-control, manipulates perception, and changes everything you thought you knew about influence. Are you ready to see why explaining yourself is a trap? Have you ever noticed how some people dig their own grave by trying too hard to explain themselves? Every word they speak gives away power, and every explanation they make strengthens their enemy's position. The second dark psychology trick is simple, yet most people fall for it every single day. Think about it. How many times have you over-explained, justified, or defended yourself, only to regret it moments later? Every explanation you give gives someone else control over your narrative, your energy, your authority. It's a trap most people can't see until it's too late. The second trick, never explain, is about refusing to justify yourself to anyone. When you justify, you give your opponent a map to your reasoning, your weaknesses, and your fears. Silence doesn't just protect you. It forces them to overthink, misinterpret, and make mistakes. The moment you start explaining yourself, you've already lost control. But when you stay silent, you regain power they didn't even know you had. Pause for a moment. Think of the last time you explained yourself unnecessarily. Did it help you? Or did it backfire? Comment, no explain if you've been there. Let's go back to Machiavelli. One diplomat in Renaissance, Italy was constantly accused of betraying allies. Most people would explain, defend, and justify themselves, and in doing so, provide evidence for their enemies. But this diplomat refused. Day after day, accusation after accusation, he said nothing. His rivals, desperate for a reaction, overextended themselves. Within months, he had secured an unassailable position of influence. Silence became his shield and weapon. A CEO faces rumors about mismanagement. Instead of defending himself publicly, he stays silent, continues executing his strategy flawlessly, and watches as competitors scramble to expose a weakness that doesn't exist. In the end, his silence allowed others to sabotage themselves. Notice the pattern. The less you justify, the more your power grows and the more your opponents reveal about themselves. Let's get personal. Every time you justify yourself, you're essentially giving a stranger, or even a friend, a manual to manipulate your emotions. Every explanation is a breadcrumb leading them closer to your weaknesses. Ask yourself, how often do you feel compelled to explain yourself? How often does it cost you more than it benefits you? Now imagine a different approach. Someone attacks or criticizes you. Instead of responding, you say nothing. You observe. You let them fill in the blanks with their own assumptions. They start overthinking, overanalyzing, and ultimately overextending that invisible power in action. If you're still watching, comment untouchable if you're ready to stop giving away power with words. Most people confuse explaining with defending. They believe justification equals control. The truth is the opposite. Every explanation is a chain around your influence. Every defense is a sign of weakness. But when you refuse to explain, you force others to confront their own assumptions, doubts, and insecurities. Think of a high-stakes scenario. A competitor publicly questions your competence. You could explain yourself, argue your point, or justify your decisions. Most would, but instead you stay silent. They start speculating, second-guessing, and revealing inconsistencies in their own logic. By the end, they've undermined themselves more than they ever could by attacking you. A modern executive faced a false accusation from a powerful rival. Instead of responding, he kept executing his plans and let the situation unfold. Within weeks, the rival had embarrassed themselves publicly by overreacting, revealing errors and undermining their own credibility. Silence wasn't passive, it was strategic, and it worked better than any argument or rebuttal ever could. This is the core of the second trick. Don't explain. Don't justify. Let others' actions, words, and insecurities do the work for you. If you've ever regretted explaining yourself, type "never explain" in the comments. Imagine someone trying to provoke or accuse you. Instead of responding, you stay silent. Imagine their mind scrambling, looking for answers, overanalyzing, second-guessing. That's the invisible influence you gain by refusing to explain. Their energy goes into defending themselves instead of attacking you. If this resonates, hit subscribe and comment untouchable if you're ready to reclaim your energy and influence. Mastering silence and refusing to explain is the next step in taking control of every interaction. The second trick, never explaining, is deceptively powerful, but the next principle takes this even further. It turns silence into a weapon that can manipulate perception and bend people's minds without you ever saying a word. What if I told you the ultimate weapon isn't confrontation, it's complete indifference? The third dark psychology trick isn't about hiding strength. It's about showing it without ever reacting, explaining, or engaging. And when used correctly, it can make people break faster than any argument ever could. Think back to the last time someone tried to provoke you. How many times did you respond out of habit, anger, or pride, only to give them more power over you? If you've been there, you're about to see a way to turn the tables entirely. The third trick, complete ignoring, is about more than silence. It's about letting people reveal themselves through their own actions and words. When you ignore someone, you force them to fill the void. They start questioning themselves, making mistakes, and ultimately exposing their weaknesses without you lifting a finger. Ignoring isn't passive. It's an invisible attack that strikes harder than any confrontation. Pause and reflect. Who in your life would crumble if you stop reacting to them entirely? Comment invisible power if you can think of someone. Let's go back to history again. In Renaissance Italy, a powerful courtier was constantly targeted by rivals seeking to provoke him. Most would argue, defend, or retaliate, but he did none of these. Instead, he ignored every insult and slight. Over time, his rival became erratic, desperate, and careless. One by one, they made mistakes that destroyed their influence. Meanwhile, the courtier rose in power, not by action, but by inaction. In corporate boardrooms, top executives use this principle daily. When a colleague or competitor attempts to provoke, the calm executive refuses to engage. The provocateur grows frustrated, overreaches, and exposes their own incompetence. Silence becomes a weapon that dismantles without confrontation. Notice the pattern. Complete ignoring forces others to reveal their true nature, and when they do, you gain untouchable leverage. Every time you react or explain, you feed the other person's ego and strategy. Imagine all the arguments, all the debates, all the moments where you felt drained, frustrated, or manipulated. Each of those moments could have been neutralized by ignoring entirely. Now, imagine the power shift if you practice complete indifference. Suddenly, the provocateur loses control and you gain it, silently, invisibly. If you're still here, type untouchable in the comments. You're learning the skill that 90% of people will never master. Ignoring is not passive, it's strategic. Every time you refuse to engage, every time you remain silent, you're forcing the other person to confront their own limitations. Their frustration grows, their confidence wavers, and they often sabotage themselves. This is the secret most people overlook. Silence isn't weakness, it's power. Consider a negotiation scenario. A rival publicly insults you during a deal. Most would retaliate, but you stay silent. Hours later, they've made a critical mistake, overstepped, and given you the upper hand. You didn't fight. You didn't explain. You let them collapse on their own. By Chapter 4, you'll learn why selective attention, choosing exactly what to respond to and what to ignore, can make people bend your influence without realizing it. A modern example, a high-level executive faced public accusations of incompetence. Instead of defending themselves, they continued executing their plans, focused and unbothered. Within weeks, those spreading rumors had overextended, contradicted themselves, and lost credibility. Silence did what confrontation never could. It dismantled their opposition, while the executive remained untouchable. This is the essence of the third trick. Letting others destroy themselves through their own actions while you maintain control, calm, and power. If you've ever been provoked into responding and regretted it, type invisible power now. Visualize someone who constantly tests your patience. Now imagine you respond with zero emotion. No reaction, no justification, no engagement. They begin to panic internally, speculate wildly, and make mistakes trying to predict your behavior. This is invisible influence, the art of letting people unravel themselves without touching them. If this resonates, hit subscribe and comment, invisible power, if you're ready to reclaim your energy and influence. Mastering complete ignoring is your next step toward becoming untouchable in any situation. The third trick, complete ignoring, is deceptively simple, but the next principle takes it further: selective attention. By controlling exactly what you acknowledge and what you dismiss, you can manipulate perception itself. What if you could control not just your reactions, but the very way people perceive you? The fourth dark psychology trick isn't about responding. It's about choosing what deserves your attention. By mastering selective attention, you can manipulate perception and subtly bend others to your will without ever saying a word. Think about your life. How often do you give attention to people or situations that don't matter? How often does your energy get wasted on someone trying to provoke or distract you? That ends today. The fourth trick, selective attention, is about being strategic with what you acknowledge and what you dismiss. People naturally assume that whatever you focus on is important. Use that to your advantage. By controlling your attention, you control perception. By controlling perception, you control influence. It's deceptively subtle, but the effect is massive. You can make someone feel invisible, insignificant, or desperate, simply by choosing not to notice them. Think for a moment. Who in your life wastes your energy by demanding attention? Comment, invisible influence, if you're ready to stop feeding their power. History gives us a clear example. In Renaissance courts, some nobles would flaunt provocations to draw reactions from their rivals. One tactician learned to ignore everything that wasn't strategically important. By responding only to matters that advance his influence, he made others feel powerless, frustrated, and small. His rivals spent their energy reacting to perceived slights, while he quietly gained control of the court. In business, a manager faces constant gossip and provocation from team members. Instead of engaging every complaint or insult, she responds only to actions that impact results. Her selective attention sends a silent message. Only what matters gets acknowledged. Soon, the gossipers either shape up or expose their own weaknesses through overreaction. Notice the power shift. By controlling attention, you make people reveal priorities, weaknesses, and intentions they never intended to show. Every time you give your attention freely, you are teaching others what controls you. Every glance, every response, every acknowledgement is a signal. Ask yourself, how much of my attention is wasted on people or situations that don't matter? How many arguments, debates, or conflicts could have been neutralized by ignoring entirely? Now imagine applying selective attention. You only react when it strategically benefits you. The rest, you dismiss, silently and confidently. The mental shift is enormous. You're no longer manipulated by others. You dictate what matters and what doesn't. If you're still watching, comment master of attention if you're ready to reclaim control over where your energy goes. Selective attention isn't just offensive, it's offensive. By appearing indifferent to provocations or distractions, you force others to overanalyze, overreact, and self-sabotage. Every time you ignore a petty insult or irrelevant complaint, you create a vacuum they desperately try to fill, and usually fail. A negotiator faces multiple attempts to provoke him during a deal. Rather than responding to each distraction, he only addresses the points that matter strategically. The opponents, frustrated by his indifference, overreach, reveal weaknesses and give away advantages. He never raised his voice. He let their own reactions work against them. A modern executive was constantly baited by a rival spreading rumors and minor complaints. Instead of engaging, she responded only to the actions that threatened her goals. Within weeks, the rival had overextended, contradicted themselves, and undermined their own credibility. Her selective attention ensured that she stayed above the fray, untouchable and in control. This is the essence of the fourth trick. By choosing what to notice and what to ignore, you make others bend your influence without lifting a finger. If you've ever been manipulated by someone demanding your attention, type master of attention now. Think of someone constantly trying to provoke or distract you. Now imagine responding only when it matters. For everything else, you remain silent, indifferent, and unbothered. Watch them scramble internally, overthink, and overreach. That is selective attention in action. The silent power that shifts influence in your favor without confrontation. If this resonates, comment master of attention if you're ready to reclaim control over your energy, perception, and influence. Mastering selective attention is the next step in becoming untouchable in every interaction. The fourth trick, selective attention, is deceptively simple. But the next principle shows how combined silence, ignoring, and measured focus into a force that controls not just reactions, but outcomes. What if I told you the most powerful weapon isn't words, anger, or action, but patience? The fifth dark psychology trick is deceptively simple. Never rush, never react immediately, and let time break your opponents for you. Master this, and you control outcomes that most people fight desperately to achieve. Think about it. How many times have you reacted too quickly, spoken too soon, or made a decision in haste, only to regret it immediately? That's the trap most people fall into, and it's exactly what patience exploits. The fifth trick, the power of patience, is about using time as a weapon. When someone provokes you, don't respond. When you're tempted to explain or justify, wait. When others expect a reaction, withhold it. Time becomes your ally while frustration becomes theirs. The longer you wait strategically, the more mistakes they make and the more control you gain. Patience is not weakness. Patience is deliberate. Every delay forces others to overthink, overreact, and reveal their true intentions. Think of the last time you acted too quickly and regretted it. Calm and patient power, if you're ready to let time work in your favor instead. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. One ruler was constantly under threat from rivals who tried to provoke him into rash decisions. Most would act immediately, defend, retaliate, or explain, but he waited days, weeks, months. Every time he held back, his opponents exposed more themselves. Eventually, without lifting a hand, he gained unchallenged power. A high-level executive faced false accusations from a competitor. Instead of reacting publicly, he let time expose the truth. Within weeks, the competitor contradicted themselves, lost credibility, and undermined their own position. Patience did the work. He never had to fight. Notice the pattern. Time is a tool. Patience turns the tables and allows others to reveal their weaknesses without you saying a word. Every time you act impulsively, you hand power to others. Every hurried explanation, reaction, or decision gives them leverage. Ask yourself, how many situations could have been neutralized if you'd waited, observed, and let time do the work? Now imagine the mental shift. When provoked, you pause. When insulted, you wait. When attacked, you hold back. Others grow impatient, frustrated, and careless. Their mistakes multiply, while your power grows silently in the background. If you're still here, comment patient power if you're ready to stop reacting and start letting time work for you. Patience is not passive, it's strategic. Every second you wait strategically forces the other person to make mistakes. They overanalyze, misjudge, and expose vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, you remain calm, calculated, and untouchable. Consider a negotiation scenario. A rival tries to provoke you into making a hasty decision. Most would react immediately, potentially giving away leverage. But you wait. Hours, maybe days. The rival becomes desperate, reveals critical weaknesses. And in the end, you achieve far more than reaction ever could have provided. A CEO faced public pressure from a media scandal. Instead of panicking or over-explaining, he stayed calm and let the truth emerge slowly. Competitors rushed to attack, made errors, and undermined their own credibility. Within weeks, the company emerged stronger, respected, and untouchable, all because of strategic patience. This is the essence of the fifth trick. Let time work as your ally. Patience amplifies silence, selective attention, and controlled reactions. If you've ever acted too quickly and wish you had, type patient power now. Think of someone trying to provoke you right now. Instead of responding immediately, pause. Let hours or days pass before any action. Imagine their frustration building, their anxiety growing, and their mistakes multiplying, all while you remain calm, controlled, and untouchable. This is the invisible power of patience in action. The fifth trick, patience, is deceptively powerful, But the next principle shows how to combine patience, silence, and selective attention to subtly manipulate perception itself. Chapter 6 awaits. What if you could make people believe exactly what you want without ever saying a word? The sixth dark psychology trick is about controlled influence. Use your actions, silence, and presence to subtly manipulate perception and guide others to your desired outcome. Think about your life. How often have people misread you? Or worse, use your words against you? What if you could control how they perceive you without arguing, explaining, or reacting? That's the hidden power of controlled influence. The sixth trick, controlled influence, is about creating a narrative through your actions, reactions, and silence. You don't need to manipulate openly. You simply create conditions where people believe your version of reality. When you combine silence, selective attention, and patience, your presence alone becomes a subtle yet unstoppable force. It's invisible, but devastatingly effective. People will follow, overextend, and reveal their intentions, all without you lifting a finger. Think for a moment. Who in your life could be subtly influenced if you mastered this trick? Comment influence master if you're ready to control perception. History gives us a perfect example. Machiavelli described leaders who didn't rely on force, persuasion, or arguments. They controlled perception through calculated presence, selective reactions, and patience. One diplomat manipulated an entire council by never openly confronting anyone, but subtly guiding decisions through timing and selective acknowledgement. By the end, he had influence far beyond his official power. A top executive in a multinational company used controlled influence during a major merger. He never directly challenged anyone, didn't explain decisions, and responded only when strategically necessary. By carefully choosing what to highlight and what to ignore, he guided stakeholders to the outcome he wanted, all while appearing uninvolved. Notice the pattern. Influence doesn't require arguing. It requires strategy, timing, and subtle cues. Ask yourself, how many arguments or confrontations could have been avoided if you had influenced the outcome silently? How many times have you over-explained or overreacted, giving away your power? Controlled influence flips that completely. Instead of giving control to others, you shape their perceptions without them noticing. Imagine applying this. You remain silent during provocations, react only when necessary, and allow time and selective attention to guide outcomes. Others act based on their assumptions. Assumptions you've subtly guided. That invisible power in action. If you're still watching, comment influence master if you're ready to shape perception instead of being shaped by it. Controlled influence is subtle, but every subtle action compounds into powerful results. Every reaction you suppress, every explanation you avoid, and every moment of selective attention builds a silent narrative. People start believing your version of reality without questioning it. They take actions you subtly guided them to take, often against their own best interests. Consider a negotiation. Instead of arguing, you allow the other party to speak, pause, and over-explain. You respond only when strategically advantageous. By the end, the deal unfolds exactly as you intended, without a single confrontation. A modern CEO used controlled influence during a hostile takeover. He didn't confront rivals publicly, didn't argue, and didn't defend his actions. Instead, he guided perception subtly through selective acknowledgement, timing, and silence. Within weeks, the rivals' team made critical errors based on their own assumptions, and the CEO gained complete control without direct confrontation. This is the essence of the sixth trick. You don't manipulate overtly. You create conditions where others manipulate themselves, guided entirely by your strategic presence. Engagement trigger. If you've ever wanted to influence outcomes without confrontation, type influence master now. Think of someone whose actions frustrate or challenge you. Now imagine guiding their decisions silently, through selective reactions, patience, and calculated attention. They act based on their assumptions, revealing intentions, weaknesses, and opportunities you can capitalize on, all without saying a word. If you're ready to shape perception and outcomes without confrontation, mastering controlled influence is your next step to becoming untouchable in any interaction. The sixth trick, controlled influence, is powerful, but incomplete without understanding people's hidden intentions. Chapter 7 reveals how to observe, analyze, and anticipate every move before they even make it. Are you ready to see the mind of your opponent? What if you could predict every move your opponent will make before they even think it? The 7 dark psychology trick is simple in theory, but devastating in practice. Master observation, and you control the battlefield of human behavior without ever raising your voice. Think about the last time someone surprised or outmaneuvered you. How often were you caught off guard because you failed to notice the subtle signals? That ends now. The 7th trick, observation, is about reading the tiniest cues: body language, tone of voice, hesitation, microexpressions, and patterns of behavior. These reveal intentions, weaknesses, and hidden agendas. Once you learn to observe without reacting, you can anticipate every move before it happens, giving you ultimate control. It's like seeing the game board while everyone else is playing blind. And when you combine this with silence, selective attention, and patience, you become untouchable. Think of someone in your life who always seems one step ahead. Comment, observer, if you're ready to turn the tables and anticipate every move. History shows us this clearly. Machiavelli described leaders who never reacted impulsively. They watched, waited, and observed. One prince anticipated threats before they arose simply by noticing small patterns in rivals' behavior. By the time action was required, he already knew the outcome and was always 3 steps ahead. Modern example: a CEO notices subtle hesitation in a competitor during negotiations, micro-pauses, fleeting expressions, repeated phrases. Using observation alone, she predicts a competitor's next moves and guides the deal to her advantage without ever confronting them directly. Notice the pattern. Observation turns unpredictability into predictable outcomes, and those who fail to watch are always at the mercy of those who do. Ask yourself, how many times have you been surprised or manipulated because you didn't notice subtle signals? Every hesitation, repeated phrase, or micro-expression is a clue. Learning to observe without reacting trains your mind to anticipate outcomes and neutralize threats before they exist. Imagine this shift. Instead of being manipulated, you see intentions before they're acted upon. You don't have to argue, react, or defend. You simply use their own behavior to your advantage. If you're still here, comment, observer, if you're ready to see people's intentions before they even realize them. Observation isn't passive, it's strategic. Every glance, hesitation, and pattern tells a story. Combine it with selective attention and patience, and you can guide people into overextending, revealing weaknesses, or taking actions they wouldn't otherwise. Consider a negotiation scenario. A rival pauses subtly every time certain topics are mentioned. By observing this pattern without commenting, you learn their priorities, weaknesses, and fears. When the moment comes, you use this knowledge to secure the outcome you want. No argument needed. No confrontation required. During a high-stakes boardroom battle, a top executive noticed a competitor's subtle gestures, crossed arms, delayed responses, and repeated verbal tics. She didn't comment, argue, or react. By observing, she predicted their negotiation strategy, guided outcomes subtly, and ultimately secured a deal without direct confrontation. Observation turned uncertainty into power. This is the essence of the 7th trick. Anticipation through observation. The more you notice, the more you control. The less they realize you're watching, the more powerful you become. If you want to anticipate every move around you, type observer in the comments. Pick someone who tries to manipulate or provoke you. Watch them silently. Notice gestures, tone, microexpressions, and pauses. Without reacting, predict their next move. You'll see patterns emerge. Now imagine using that knowledge strategically, guiding their actions without them realizing it. That invisible power in action. By Chapter 8, you'll combine observation with subtle influence and selective attention, creating a force so powerful it quietly controls outcomes around you. Comment, observer, if you're ready to see intentions before they happen. Mastering observation is your next step toward untouchable influence. The 7th trick, observation, gives you foresight. But foresight alone isn't enough. Chapter 8 reveals how to use subtle influence and psychological nudges to guide people into actions you desire, without them ever realizing it. Are you ready? What if I told you that the fastest way to lose power is to always be available? The eighth dark psychology trick is not about speaking louder, proving more, or reacting faster. It is about withdrawing strategically. Because in human psychology, what is rare becomes valuable, and what is always available becomes disposable. If you master strategic scarcity, people will stop taking you for granted and start fearing the possibility of losing you. The eighth trick, strategic scarcity, means controlling access to your time, emotions, explanations, and attention. You don't disappear completely. You don't become cold. You don't attack anyone. You simply reduce access. And the moment you do that, something dangerous happens in the minds of others. They start questioning their position in your life. The more you withdraw, the more they reveal their dependence. Scarcity is not arrogance. It is psychological leverage. There was someone who was always available. He replied instantly. He explained himself constantly. He tried to prove his worth to everyone around him. People ignored him. They interrupted him. They dismissed his opinions. They assumed he would always be there. Then one day, he changed one thing. He stopped replying immediately. He stopped explaining every decision. He stopped chasing validation. Within weeks, the dynamic shifted. People started seeking his attention, asking for his approval, respecting his boundaries. Nothing about his personality changed, only his availability did. And that was enough to transform his power. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you given unlimited access to people who gave you minimal respect? How many times have you overexplained your actions just to avoid being misunderstood? Every time you do that, you send a silent message. I am always available. I am easy to reach. I am easy to replace. Strategic scarcity destroys that message. Instead of proving your value, you let absence create it. Instead of chasing attention, you make attention chase you. If this truth feels uncomfortable, it means it's working. Engagement trigger. If you've ever felt taken for granted, comment scarcity. Strategic scarcity works because the human mind fears loss more than it desires gain. When people sense that access to you is no longer guaranteed, their emotions change. They become more cautious, more attentive, more respectful. They start thinking, what changed? Why isn't he reacting like before? Why does she seem distant? And here's the dark part. You didn't fight them. You didn't confront them. You didn't explain anything. You simply stepped back. That small withdrawal shifts the entire power balance. Because now, they are thinking about you more than you think about them. Imagine a negotiation. One person speaks constantly, explains every detail, and tries desperately to be understood. The other person speaks less, reveals less information, and pauses before responding. Who controls the room? Not the one who talks more, but the one who withholds. By revealing less, you force others to reveal more. By being less available, you become more valuable. Strategic scarcity turns silence into dominance. Most people fear being misunderstood, so they overexplain. Most people fear losing relationships, so they overgive. Most people fear conflict, so they overreact. But Machiavellian psychology reveals something brutal. The more you fear losing people, the more power you give them over you. Strategic scarcity is not cruelty. It is emotional discipline. It is the ability to say, without words, I do not need to prove my worth. And that mindset alone changes how people treat you. Engagement trigger. If you feel this shift happening in your mind, comment discipline. Imagine the scenario. Someone tries to provoke you. You don't respond immediately. Someone questions your decision. You don't explain everything. Someone demands your time. You don't rush to give it. At first, they feel confused. Then they feel uncertain. Then they feel something deeper. They no longer control your reactions. You do. And the moment they realize that, their respect for you changes permanently. That is the hidden power of strategic scarcity. If this chapter changed how you see power and relationships, subscribe now. And if you're ready to stop giving unlimited access to people who don't deserve it, comment scarcity. Strategic scarcity gives you distance. But distance alone is not enough. Because the ninth dark psychology trick is even more dangerous. It teaches you when to disappear completely, and when to return at the exact moment your absence becomes unbearable. And once you master that, people won't just respect you, they will fear losing you. What if I told you that the most terrifying form of power is not presence, but disappearance? The ninth dark psychology trick is not about fighting, arguing, or proving anything. It is about knowing the exact moment to vanish. Because when you disappear at the right time, you don't just remove yourself from the game, you become the game. And the moment people realize they can't reach you anymore, their perception of your value changes forever. The ninth trick, strategic disappearance, means this. You withdraw completely at critical moments. Not emotionally, not dramatically, not with explanations. You simply vanish. And in that silence, something dangerous happens. People start imagining your importance. When you disappear, others fill the silence with fear, curiosity, and regret. Disappearance is not weakness. It is psychological domination. There was someone who was always present, always available, always responsive, always predictable. People got used to him. They knew he would always reply, always show up, always explain himself. Then one day, he disappeared. No arguments, no announcements, no emotional goodbye. Weeks passed. People started asking questions. Where is he? Why did he leave? Did we lose him? Suddenly, the same people who ignored him felt the weight of his absence. His value didn't increase because he changed. It increased because he left. Ask yourself, how many times have you stayed in places where you were undervalued? How many times have you remained available to people who never appreciated your presence? Every time you stay where you are not respected, you teach people that your absence has no cost. Strategic disappearance changes that rule. Instead of begging to be seen, you remove yourself from visibility. Instead of demanding respect, you let absence create it. If this idea feels uncomfortable, it means it threatens your old identity. If you've ever felt invisible in someone's life, comment disappear. Strategic disappearance works because the human mind hates unanswered questions. When you vanish without explanation, people feel psychological tension. They wonder, did I lose control? Did I underestimate them? Did I push them too far? And here's the dark truth. You didn't attack them. You didn't argue. You didn't justify yourself. You simply removed access. That single act destabilizes emotional hierarchies, because now they're forced to confront your absence and the possibility that you were never as replaceable as they thought. Imagine a relationship. One person constantly tries to fix things, explain feelings, and keep the connection alive. The other person suddenly disappears. No drama, no emotional speeches, silence. Days later, the person who was taken for granted becomes the one being desperately searched for, not because they begged for attention, but because they stopped asking for it. Strategic disappearance flips emotional power instantly. Most people fear being forgotten, so they stay. Most people fear losing relevance, so they fight. Most people fear loneliness, so they tolerate disrespect. But Machiavellian psychology reveals something brutal. Sometimes, the only way to be valued is to become unreachable. Strategic disappearance is not abandonment. It is self-respect weaponized. Engagement trigger. If you feel this shift in perspective, comment unreachable. Imagine this. You stop responding to constant disrespect. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop showing up where you are undervalued. You disappear. At first, nothing happens. Then questions arise. Then anxiety appears. Then something deeper happens. People realize they lost access to you. And the moment they feel that loss, their perception of your worth changes permanently. That is the silent power of disappearance. If this chapter opened your eyes to the power of absence, like and share this video now. And if you're ready to stop staying where you are not valued, comment unreachable. Strategic disappearance gives you mystery. But mystery alone is not enough. Because the 10th and final dark psychology trick is the most dangerous of all. It teaches you how to return after disappearance, not as the same person, but as someone people are afraid to challenge. And once you learn that, you won't just control perception, you will control reality. What if I told you that disappearing is not the real power? Returning is? The 10th and final dark psychology trick is not about silence, distance, or mystery alone. It is about how you re-enter people's lives after they thought they lost you forever. Because when you return strategically, you don't just come back as the same person. You come back as someone they are afraid to underestimate again. The 10th trick, the silent return, means this. After disappearing, you return with a different energy, different boundaries, and a different identity. You don't explain where you went. You don't justify your absence. You don't reconnect emotionally the same way. You simply exist differently. And that difference is what reshapes power. People don't fear what they understand. They fear what they can no longer predict. Your return becomes unsettling because it breaks the version of you they thought they knew. There was someone who disappeared. No drama, no explanation, no emotional closure. For a long time, people assumed he was gone forever. Then one day he returned. Not louder, not emotional, not desperate, calmer, more distant, more controlled. People noticed something instantly. He no longer sought approval. He no longer reacted the same way. He no longer explained himself. And that subtle shift changed everything. The same people who once ignored him now hesitated before speaking to him, not because he threatened them, but because they no longer understood him. Ask yourself, how many times have you returned to people as the same version of yourself? How many times have you forgiven disrespect without changing your boundaries? Every time you return unchanged, you teach people that your absence meant nothing. The silent return destroys that pattern. Instead of returning as the same person, you return as someone who has evolved beyond old expectations. If this idea feels uncomfortable, it means it challenges your old identity. Engagement trigger. If you're ready to stop returning as the same person, comment return. The silent return works because it disrupts psychological familiarity. People are comfortable with what they can predict, but when you return unpredictable, you create psychological tension. They start asking, why is he different? What happened to her? Did I lose control? And here's the dark truth. You didn't attack them. You didn't argue. You didn't explain anything. You simply changed. That change is terrifying to people who once felt superior to you, because now they no longer know how to treat you. And uncertainty is a foundation of power. Imagine a workplace scenario. Someone leaves a toxic environment quietly. Months later, they return, not as an employee, but as a competitor, consultant, or authority figure. They don't explain their past. They don't reconnect emotionally. They interact with calm distance. The same people who once ignored them now treat them with caution and respect, not because they begged for recognition, but because their return rewrote the hierarchy. That is a silent return in action. Most people fear changing. They want to be liked, understood, and accepted. So when they return, they try to reconnect emotionally. But Machiavellian psychology reveals something brutal. If you return emotionally attached, you lose the power your absence created. The silent return requires discipline. It requires you to resist the urge to explain, justify, or reconnect too deeply. Because power is not built on familiarity. It is built on transformation. Engagement trigger. If you feel this truth, comment transformed. Imagine this. You leave situations where you are undervalued. You disappear without drama. You rebuild yourself in silence. Then one day, you return, not to prove anything, not to explain anything, not to reconnect the same way. You return with calm distance and unshakable boundaries. People feel it immediately. You are no longer the person they once controlled. And the moment they realize that, the power dynamic changes forever. That is a final secret of Machiavellian psychology. You started this video as someone who reacted, explained, and chased understanding. Now you understand something deeper. Power is not loud. Power is not emotional. Power is not reactive. Power is silent, controlled, and strategic. You don't need to fight everyone. You don't need to explain everything. You don't need to react to everything. Sometimes the most dangerous move is doing nothing until the right moment. If this video changed how you see power, subscribe now. And if you're ready to stop reacting, stop explaining, and start controlling your presence, comment untouchable, because now you're no longer just a participant in psychological games. You understand them. And once you understand them, you can never be controlled the same way again. But here's the truth most people never realize. Silence is powerful. Distance is powerful. Transformation is powerful. But there is one psychological strategy even darker than all 10 combined. A strategy so subtle that most people never notice it until it's too late. And in the next video, you'll discover it.